I have to give your brother-in-law a shout out here, Owen Coyle, because Owen passed me on your book, and I was reading the autobiography.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and one story in that stood out to me great in terms of the preparation for that was that in the lead up to that, there's always something. There's a story behind the story, if you know what I mean. You had a Scottish Cup final in the lead up to, and it didn't go so well for you with Celtic, but what happened there? You can tell the story yourself, Packie, which went on to benefit you.
Yeah, well, no, listen. Yeah, we played the Scottish Cup final, got beat against Aberdeen, and it was a bad game. We had a bad season that year. I think we finished 5th in the league, which I don't remember too much about the league, but I do remember the cup final. But it went to, I think it was 8-9 in penalties or something. And I think I went the right way for one penalty, and there was Jim Betts' penalty. He was a normal penalty taker, and I knew what Jim was putting in, and he was put it right down the right-hand corner, and it was a good penalty, but it touched my fingers. But then after that, I didn't have a clue where the ball was going.
Yes.
And I kept going the wrong way for penalties, and the more you go the wrong way for a penalty, the more disheartened you get, and the lack of confidence you get, and it just wasn't working. So we lost it. We lost the final, which was incredible. But then, of course, the high of going to a World Cup was around the corner. And then, of course, come up with a bit of a plan. But we weren't really coming up with a plan to prepare for a penalty shootout in the World Cup. It was just that we had discussed what happened in Scotland.
Yes.
And out of that discussion came almost a tactical awareness of what we should be doing. And I must give great credit to Jerry Payton, because he watched the game and watched the penalties, and it was his real tactical strategy about how we should adopt it if you were going to meet in the penalty shootout again, or a penalty during a game, how you would approach it. So all of that then lived with me when I went into that penalty shootout against Romania, and I must say, when you look at it and look back at it, I went the right way for every penalty, and I managed to save one. The penalty itself was a moment in time, but it wasn't the best penalty in the world when you look at the rest of the penalties. But when you go the right way, and it's not a good penalty, you have a chance of saving it.
Well, that's it. And you worked with, it was one of the most famous moments in Irish sport, and what I don't think no one would question that, but it was just a technique he was working on you, wasn't it, Packie, like Jerry?
There was more about the positioning of the players and how they approach the ball, that type of stuff. I had my own technique of movement, but it was just about the positioning and that, But the interesting, from Jack's perspective, he kind of took a back seat when it came to the penalties, because we hadn't organised anything, who was taking what. It was actually Noel King. Noel was telling me that was him. I didn't know this, but he was the one that went round and got the names of the players and filled out the form that had to go to the referee and who was taking what, and that. But that was Jack's philosophy also. He didn't want to put people under pressure. You think about it, if people probably knew that they had to come up and take a penalty and it was coming to the last 10 minutes, they might have lost focus on the pitch. So he didn't want to do that. Then he wanted to make sure that whoever was going to take it had the confidence to take it. And the other thing is that, you maybe had a list, and then you had players who maybe had to go off injured or substitution. They weren't allowed to take a penalty, and you had to change it anyway. So he left it to the last minute. And luckily enough, the guys who stepped up, all of them, had the back of the net. And I did my wee bit, so it worked out. And so again, you might look at Jack's role in that and say he should have been more organised, but did it work? Absolutely.
It worked, yeah.